What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? You already know what time it is. We got another hot banger from you here in the Birdcage. But before you do get to the Birdcage tonight, please hit the subscribe button on the YouTube for us. Get us some more likes because we're gonna bring some hot stuff to you tonight. We got a special guest, but you gotta tune in and you gotta hit that subscribe button to see who it is. So sit back, relax, kick back. You already know how we get down, man. Welcome to the Birdcage. You know what it is and what time it is.
Okay, y'all, this is it.
What's going on? What's going on, good people? I got something hot for all the Falcon fans tonight. We in the Birdcage are going to bring to you former Atlanta Falcons running back, Mr. Haskel Stanback. Spent 5 years with the Falcons and did a lot of great work outside of football as well. But we're going to get into his career from the time he came up to the time where he's at right now. He's done a lot of great things in the communities, family man, philanthropist, and also hardworking railroad man. So you already know what it is. We definitely getting ready to get down to it and get with it. So before we end up bringing our guest in, I got to go ahead and start bringing in the crew for tonight. Got to bring in the first person who hit me up when I talked about it. He's a Tennessee Volunteer fan, and we got to show some love to the Vols here. So I got to add my man, Mr. Brant Gaylor, aka Coach Brant. What it do? What's going on, man? Welcome back to the cage, buddy.
Glad to be here. Glad to have another Vol in the house with me tonight. Besides Melton, I love it.
Yeah. But you still outnumbered by dogs. It don't matter. It's dog country, baby. You know what it is. And speaking of dogs, I got to bring in my man, Mr. Graybeard, my other bulldog partner in crime. What's going on, Graybeard?
Birdcage. Birdcage. Bird freaking cage. What's going on? Historian, Coach B, how y'all doing?
What's going on, Graybeard?
What's going
man,
on?
another day, man. Can't
It's
wait for
Friday
the show
Eve.
tonight. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So while you guys are coming into the cage, let me see if I can go grab Mr. Stanback real quick. So give me a moment, gentlemen. So I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab Mr. Stanback so we can bring him into the Birdcage officially. So I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. So while we getting started, let's go ahead and talk about the stuff that's been going on in the league. Let's go ahead and get this thing warmed up. What do you guys think about the New York Jets right now? They're literally bringing in Green Bay at this point. What you got?
Talk about the new Jersey Packers.
Yeah.
I mean, they pretty much been into the will of Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers want a certain player, they better go get him. I mean, I thought the trade was going to happen either way because I just looked at the writing on the wall. Packers were like, look, we're done. We had enough. Well, what do you want? So they got some draft capital out of him. He got to go to the team he wanted to go to. Yeah, let bygones be bygones. I'm trying to see how everybody else is going to, be around Aaron or whatever the case may be, how he's going to cooperate with his new players new offense, new team, new coach. So it's going to be a different environment. And he thought Green Bay was bad. He ain't felt nothing yet till he got to that to them New York Jet fans because they are just about as worse than New York Giant fans when it comes to winning. So I just, I just hope he can take it now. What do you think, Coach B?
I think they're bringing in a lot of familiarity for Mr. Rogers. So they're both getting a little long in the tooth, but they know each other. They know how each other thinks. So they got to keep that man upright. If they keep him upright, he's still dangerous.
I mean, question: do you think the Jet offense was better than the Packers offense? Offensively, I'm not talking about team. I'm talking about offensively.
Talent-wise, yes, they have more talent right now. I think they do. I think they do. Talent-wise, they're younger. They're a younger team compared to what Green Bay has on the shelf right now. But you never know. It's all going to depend on how they protect them. I mean,
I agree, man.
That's a big
that offensive line got to be shored up. Offensive line got to be shored up. We still don't know how healthy Brees Hall is from coming back from that injury as well.
I'm back. I apologize, fellas.
All right.
So y'all, can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, just had to make sure because we had some issues with the sound and everything else that was coming along.
Yeah, I hear what you mean now.
Now that we have everybody's full attention, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BirdCage. I have to bring in the legendary Mr. Haskel Stanback. Welcome to the. We can't see you, Mr. Stanback. You got to click the. You actually got to click the button for the camera. Can you hear us now, sir?
Yeah, I can't hear him.
Yeah, we can't hear him, so we're having some technical difficulties. I think there he goes. Oh, he just went away.
If I play Rocky Top, I bet he shows up.
Oh,
don't start that mess. We got trademark. That's trademark infringement. We're not trying to get sued in here. Stop.
All we gotta do is say we don't own the rights to the music, and we're good.
So you play Rocket Top, I'll start singing.
Oh, we can hear you, but you gotta hit the button, Mr. Stanback. So hit your camera button again, because we had you for a second.
Yeah, he's off.
Did he went? He went out.
Yeah, we don't need the Rocky Top. We good.
So we're having some technical difficulties on the stream spot. We do have Mr. Haskel Stanback, as you saw the clip. The gentleman is here. We are going to talk about Falcons football or whatnot. But speaking of Falcons football, while we try to get Mr. Stanback into the building, look at some of the free agents that we've signed wide receiver wise. There's another young Blazer that we ended up getting while we're waiting on Mr. Stanback to get back in. Kid by the name of Xavier Malone. Xavier Malone is 4'2", 4'3" speed, good hands, good route runner, and honestly could possibly be a guy that can stretch the defense. We've been fussing about speed. We finally got some. How do you guys feel about his film and what you guys saw from Xavier Malone?
Go ahead, Coach B.
He reminds me of Turbo Taylor. Take the top
there
off.
We go. We got Mr.
Hey,
Stanback.
Mr. Stanback. How you doing?
There we go.
All right.
Officially, let's go ahead and do it. So, welcoming to the BirdCage for the first time on the Perch segment, we have Falcons legendary running back, Mr. Haskel Stanback. Welcome to the cage, sir.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Always, sir. It's always a pleasure when we have greatness among us. Even though you're a volunteer, we ain't gonna hold that against you.
That's the best thing I've heard. That's the best.
I was gonna say something,
today,
but it may
Mr.
not be
Stanback.
appropriate.
You know what? It's okay. You know what? You earn the respect to do that, sir. So we're all about it, sir. So shout out to the Dogs with Dynamite in here. They're in the building tonight. And my guys from Hawks, We Talk Hawks TV, they're in the building. So we've got a lot of Falcon fans on here, in here for you tonight, Mr. Stanback. So you got a lot of love here. Even though you've been away from the game for a minute, we definitely respect what you did and helped us when we won our first playoff game in 1978. I wasn't even twinkling on my dad's eye. So, thank you.
That was
All right,
the year
appreciate
I
it, guys.
became that's the year I became a Falcons fan, was because of you all and that team you were on. I've been a Falcons fan since '78. So
Okay.
thank you, sir.
You're telling your age now, man.
That's all right. That's just
He's
character.
half a century. He always likes to joke and say. I'm just messing with you. So
That's good.
welcome. We're letting everybody filter in. So just to give a brief synopsis on Mr. Haskel Stanback, one of the best Falcon running backs that we had that was underutilized. But when he got put on the spot, he was Johnny on the spot for us and was one of the best that we had. Mr. Haskel Stanback started 83 football games for the Falcons, 52 starts, 728 attempts, 2,662 yards rushing, 25 rushing TDs, 3.7 yards a carry. I think it was 4 yards a carry. I think they cheated him out of 3 yards, by the way. 98 receptions, 786 yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and he had 1 pass attempt, and it was for a touchdown. So he's got a perfect passer rating. You can teach our quarterback how to throw touchdowns, sir. And that was for 41 yards, actually. We're gonna go ahead and get into Mr. Haskel Stanback's life, his career. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we do. We bring in a legend to you. So let's get started, Mr. Stanback.
All right.
So tell us a little bit from where you're from and where you're from and how was it growing up in the area that you grew up in, sir?
All right. Well, I'm from Kannapolis, North Carolina. That's a Greek word for city of looms. It's where Cannon Mills was the main employer. Everybody worked at the mill, and that's what you did. You grew up, you worked at the mill, you retired, and you died from working in the mill. Largest producer of towels and sheets in the world, largest unincorporated city in the United States, and that's where I grew up. But I was determined that once I grew up and graduated from high school, I was going to leave and go to college, and we're going to never go back. It was that type of situation. But it was a humble beginning. At oldest of 6 kids, single parent family, like so many guys nowadays. I mean, not so many today as it was, years ago, but that was the norm. And try to do some things to help the situation better for my younger brothers and sisters. And the opportunity came from playing football. I realized at a young age that sports was going to be my outlet because my mother was from a family of 11 kids, 9 boys and 2 girls, 3 sets of twins, and I couldn't carry the jockey strap of neither of them. But they didn't like school. They didn't go to school. They only played the sport. They only went to school when the sport they played was in season, and when that sport was over there, they quit going to school. So
Wow.
it was we used to get together on Sundays in the field behind my grandmother's house, and we played different communities, play football in the backyard back there. No pads, no nothing, and it was rugged, So grew up in an environment where you just had to be tough, and you made the best of the situations that you had, and tried to improve yourself.
I'm sure Coach Brent has a question for you. I know I'm not going to hog up the spotlight. I'm going to let Coach Brent jump in on the question. What you got for him, Coach?
Well, if you don't mind, kind of go into how you wound up at the University of Tennessee, because I'm a big Volunteer fan too, because I still live here. So,
okay.
I actually work in Knoxville and live just a little north of town. So,
okay. My wife is from Knoxville. You heard of Luther Bradley?
Yes.
Luther Bradley that's her dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was just there last week. I was recruited by a lot of different schools. And originally I had made up my mind, Woody Hayes came to town, was recruiting me as a defensive back, which I wanted to play. That was my first love, was defense. And he says, Jack Tatum is graduating. You come in, we got a spot for you, start you right up. And then a couple by the name of Jane and Bill Taylor from a little town called Concord, North Carolina, came to the house, had a big old jug of it looked like blood, but it was really ketchup and water. And they come to me and say, we're bringing everything we got, even a jug of blood here to try to convince you to come to the University of Tennessee. And so I flew over to visit the campus, liked the campus. Bill Bella was the head coach. And I came back home, but I was still looking to go to Ohio State because I really wasn't really all that enthused about playing offense. And then I was just contemplating where to go there or not. And I met this couple that the male had a degree in transportation, which is logistics now. And we started talking. He asked me, said, what do you want to major in when you go to school? I said, well, probably business. I don't want to be a teacher, that kind of thing. I don't want to be a social worker, so I'm going to major in business. He said, well, you need to look into this field called transportation. He says, and as a minority with a degree in transportation, you can pretty much write your own ticket. And at that time, you only had several schools that had a degree in transportation. That was Northwestern, Ohio State, and University of Tennessee. So that's when that couple, Jane and Bill Taylor, came back to revisit, and I went over to the UT and had a visit, went through the business administration and met a guy by the name of Dr. Fryer, who was over the transportation college at that time, and we talked, and that was a big deciding factor. I really hadn't really looked and paid that much attention to the football side of things. I was just looking to see what I was going to be able to do if football wasn't ever available. So between being able to get a degree in transportation and play ball at a high level, that was the main decision, the choices that I made. If that makes any sense.
Yes, sir, it does. We're very happy that you wound up at Tennessee. So thank you.
Rocky Top was good too.
Us Bulldog fans weren't happy about it because him and the legendary Condridge Holloway was killing everybody back in the day. Everybody. And I had a question. Well, the only thing we all share in common is none of us like Alabama or Florida. So we can all toss both of them schools to the wolves. But at the end of the day,
don't like Auburn either.
Auburn either,
or Kentucky.
So my question I have for you is this. So for those who don't know who Condridge Holloway is, ladies and gentlemen, Condridge Holloway was the first African-American quarterback to play in the Southeastern Conference at a major school. Now, he followed suit behind a gentleman by the name of Eddie McEachern, who played at Georgia Tech. And Eddie McEachern was the first African-American quarterback to play in the Southeast or whatnot. Better known to some family members of mine is Skip. So shout out to my Uncle Corey. Eddie McEachern is his uncle. So I know a little bit about that duel, that legendary duel he and Condridge Holloway had that day you guys went to Atlanta and played Georgia Tech. But what was it like playing with the guy who was Michael Vick before he was Michael Vick? How was it being a teammate of his, and how did he handle the pressures, and how did you handle the pressures of being at the University of Tennessee and we were still coming out of the segregation and the Jim Crow days or whatnot? How did you guys handle that?
But Carnes was a first-round draft pick by the Montreal Expos out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
He played shortstop. Matter of fact, he made All-American in baseball at UT, never made All-American as a football player.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, and it's because of the times. But it was a humbling kind of situation at the time, because it was only like five of us. When I say five of us, 5 players of color on the team at that one time. And there was this one brother named David Campbell from Nashville, was like H. Rap Brown. I mean, he was Johnny on the spot, as far as racial relationships and just the ongoing challenges that we had as people of color at that time. But the thing that really kind of made things gel was football seemed to be the calming force of the whole situation. You went out and you competed. I remember I couldn't wait to play against Alabama. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, they had my boy down there as running back. He's first person of color there. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I said, you know, I wish you luck after this is over, but we're going to kick y'all's tail today. You know, and, you know, and you know, to go to Tuscaloosa and play in that environment, it was like, that was a way to release some of that tension and animosities that you had as far as things in your regular way of life, but on the field of sports, it was a way just to release some of that and to I don't know the right word to use it, not to make it violent, but you know, we just wanted to kick some tail.
Well, we understand football is a violent game because a lot of folks don't realize that football really started back in the Ivy Leagues or whatnot, and not just in the Ivy Leagues. It was a way to train military officers. A lot of folks don't understand that the game, when you have guys injured, that's considered casualties. It's like people going down, getting killed in battle. It's pretty much what that is. You have to adjust on the fly. You have strategies that you go by. You have team meetings, just like we used to have powwow meetings while we were in the service. So a lot of us vets understand that. So a lot of those concepts that they had, you know, that was what started the game of American football, and it transcended to what it is now. So we definitely, so when you say violent, we're definitely okay with you describing it that way because we have fans in here that really enjoy it. So now that you talked about your collegiate career at Tennessee, and you talked about how you looked into logistics for a career, for a degree. The other question I have for you is this: when you were on campus, how was it for you during that time up in Knoxville or whatnot, when it came to relations with the community, because Bernard King in his autobiography kind of talked about, you know, it was a little different for him because you guys were playing during the time he was getting recruited. And he said, you know, he was a little nervous, but you and Condridge and a few other individuals made him comfortable. How did, and by the way, I'm giving free publicity to Mr. King, another volunteer. Called Game Face, playing for the legendary New York Knicks. Bernard King was actually recruited by this gentleman and Mr. Condridge Holloway to come to Tennessee with Ernie Grunfeld. So what was that like for African Americans on that campus at that time?
You know, it was, we of course, we lived in an athletic dorm. I think it probably would have been different had we been a general population and living in a dorm just on campus. But we had an athletic dorm, you know, ate our meals there, everything was there. So we had our own little niche of things. You know, we all taught each other and made a commitment to each other. We were going to go to class, we're going to go to school, we're going to get a degree. We're going to just be there just to be athletes, to play sports. We had people there like Ralph Boston, who just recently just passed away there. Ralph was there, you know, he was administrative for minority affairs. So you know, we had some outlets to go to talk about some things. There was a brother by the name of Lester McLean, who was the first person of color to play the Southeastern Conference, play wide receiver. He was there as a senior when we came in as freshmen. So, you know, we had a few outlets to go to talk about some things before we really, you know, started to try to decide how we were going to deal with it. But to be honest, it was like we were in a bubble. You know, we went anywhere and everywhere in town, or even in East Tennessee, where you hear of racial issues and racial problems, but we never really have to face or deal with any of that because we were athletes from UT. And so I guess we were kind of sheltered from the real world, real environment, and really didn't reflect on it too much until after we had left. After I had gone, because it's like, well, damn, I didn't have too many damn problems down there, but I understand I played ball there, so you know it was a little bit different. But it was a unique situation for us.
Okay.
I remember Eddie Mack, because when I was recruited by Georgia Tech when Bobby Dodd was there, to tell you a story, I was recruited by Coach Dodd. And I come into Atlanta. I'm in his office, and he said, son, we really want you to come to Georgia Tech. I said, well, Coach, Georgia Tech's a nice place. I said, but you guys just been co-ed for 2 years. I said, I was hoping to come to college and make me a nice co-ed or two and kind of go from there. And he says, hell, son, give me some names and we'll recruit them too. So
absolutely.
he wasn't bashful about it, but I know Eddie Mack. I got to know him pretty well.
He's still around Atlanta. He's still around the city.
Oh yeah.
So yes, sir. I'm all the way up here in Philadelphia, but I got family everywhere right now. That's back home in Atlanta. So I'm experiencing this nice 40 and 50-degree spring weather. So I'm a little jealous of y'all. Great Beard, what you got for Mr. Stanback, man?
First and foremost, Mr. Stanback, it's an honor and privilege to meet you, sir.
Same here, sir.
My question is, one of my questions is, what one game that you played at University of Tennessee that stood out? That one game that just that just happened. That wild game.
Yeah, we played some competition when we were there. The one game that really sticks out in my mind was we played Penn State. Joe Paterno. He had Franco Harris and Lydell Mitchell running back. And that's all I heard. That's all I heard about was Franco Harris and Lydell Mitchell. And it was just a personal thing. I said, hey, they coming to my house now. And we pay the rent around here. Franco Harris, Lydell Mitchell don't pay no rent here. And I had 3 of them in the first half. One of them over 50-something yards. It's like y'all need to go on. Of course, we had a defense that was a monster at that time too. But they were, matter of fact, Franco was trying to come out the game, and Paterno turned his back. And he was tapping on his helmet like this, like I need to come out, coach. And Paterno turned his back, and Franco just run off the field and said, I don't want no more of this. But that was the one particular game that really stuck out as far as competition and other running backs that were college All-Americans and highly respected in the sport. But and then the other one was first time we went to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama. I thought that was going to be rugged. I thought I was going to hear the N-word coming from the stands. Fans were going to be real disrespectful of players and people of color, but it was the exact opposite. Never heard it. Fans were fantastic, very supportive. As a matter of fact, I sprained both my ankles, and the guys off the Alabama team came and helped carry me off the field. So that was a humbling experience for me at that particular time. I really didn't expect that, but very respectful, very respectful. I was really taken with that experience.
Mr. Stanback,
that's very rare that Alabama does anything like that, because most of those fans, I'm not gonna say it because it's nasty with Georgia right now. I can't speak on Tennessee, but speaking on Georgia, I gotta bring in my right hand man, my partner in crime, K-Dub, Killian Worthy, better known as Always Clutch, and he wanted to make sure that he joined this legendary broadcast with this legendary Falcon because he was doing that. He had daddy duties he was taking care of. Now he get to have a little bit of fun with us.
Yeah, good to see everybody in the Stanback. Stanback.
All right.
BirdCage tonight.
Thank
you. Trying to get to the podcast and get in here and let's get going. But I was just listening in on the ride, and I would want to ask about how was it growing up with that many siblings during that time. Like speak upon growing up with that many siblings and trying to make it out the situation made out of.
I was the oldest of 6, and no running water outside jar, outside toilet. I mean the whole 9 yards. I mean it was that was what it was, and you made do, and education was always an important conversation within the family. And that was the way I figured sports. I figured was going to be my way out, so it was either that or end up working in a textile mill for the rest of my life, which I wasn't going to happen. But it was a humbling experience, very humbling. Like I said, oldest of 6, single parent. Outside toilet, no running water. You used to have to carry water into the house in the buckets. And that type of thing. So it was rugged. It was.
Right. That's like basically I say humbling to hear right now. I mean, like I say, working in these times in 2023, a lot of these kids and people that are working right now can just listen to this interview and just, put it in perspective that they're very fortunate in today's time. So it's good to hear that. It's good to hear from a former Falcon that did it back in the day, when I was born. So it's great to hear, moving forward to the present. I'm a 70s baby, so it is what it is. So it's good to hear from you, man. I know you're a volunteer. I'm a dog, but what was it like playing in the SEC back in them days, man? I mean, SEC football is king now. I mean, I'm sure it was big time back playing against some of those rivalries back in the day.
It was every stadium had a certain personality about it, and of course, playing down in Alabama was always a treat. We went down to Athens and we dug up them hedges and slung them up on the bank. I still got some of them leaves. I still got some of those leaves from those branches in my pocket right now.
I love it.
Why did you have to get him started? I knew it was getting ready to go into that direction, man. As soon as you asked him that, that's a volunteer right there.
Look, we gonna let it roll.
The only reason he get a pass is because he a Falcon. But hey, we still, Smokey, Smokey ain't the real dog in the SEC. We know that, but we ain't gonna do that.
But hey, well, I ain't gonna say that might cause trouble, but I won't say it. But it was like.
I got you. Hey, I got you back, Mr. Stanback. I'm right there with you. So.
Don't worry, we ribbed Coach Brant and we ribbed our guy Meltdown, better known as Jason, but we call him Meltdown as his nickname or whatnot. We ribbed both of them boys for being Tennessee fans because we went through a period where we were losing to you guys for a while, but tables have turned, so we got to enjoy it while it lasts. So,
but like I say. Each of those stadiums really had own personality. Man, I remember we went down to the swamp and played Florida. And I mean we were getting after them pretty good, man. They started throwing them big ass navel oranges out on the field during the game. And I had to call timeout to get them to quit. I mean, it was like
Coach Dickey was there at that time, wasn't he?
No, Dickey was the athletic director. Bill Ballard was the coach.
He became No, I'm talking about at Florida. He had just.
Oh yeah. He was.
Hey, I do have one question for you. I don't know because I was very young at that time, but I had 2 cousins that played. One of them wound up playing running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Stan Fritz. He played at NC State for Lou Holtz. He transferred from Murray State. That's my cousin, and he had a brother, Steve, who played linebacker at Vanderbilt. And I don't know. Did you play against Steve?
Yep. Matter of fact, yep.
He was a better athlete than Stan was, but he liked to get into some other stuff. I think Yeah. So,
but Vanderbilt wasn't too much competition back in that day.
Right.
I needed 155 yards to break the single season rushing record at UT, and it was halftime. I was through with it. It was all over.
Vanderbilt is still bad.
But but they're smart though. I couldn't get in school. I didn't have the GPA to go to school there, so I figured I'd go the other way. So
that's why they tell us
it was good competition.
See, that's why they tell us don't pick on kids from Duke, Vanderbilt, or Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Eventually you're gonna work for them. That's what they always make the joke. But getting back to it, in honor of draft week, ladies and gentlemen, we brought Mr. Stanback on because we're gonna reflect back on his draft day back in 1974. Because originally he wasn't drafted by the Falcons. I'm gonna let Mr. Stanback tell you a little bit about that. So who were you originally drafted by, Mr. Stanback, and how did you end up in Atlanta?
I was drafted 5th round by Cincinnati Bengals when they had Paul Brown was head coach. We came to Atlanta and played the Falcons in the preseason game over at Bobby Dodd Stadium on a Friday, and the following Wednesday they traded me to Atlanta. So I loaded up my car and put all my stuff in the trunk and headed south, and that's where it all began and where it ended. Yeah.
So when you were playing in Cincinnati, Bob Trumpy was there at the time, and then you also, and they had just got rid of Greg Cook. Now a lot of people don't know about Greg Cook. Greg Cook was literally one of the greatest that never was. Tore up his shoulder, rotator cuff, and literally the West Coast offense was born because, the Midwest offense that Bill Walsh created was born because of that. And you got a little taste of that, and you go from being in that constructive offense where it was you, Mr. Robinson, who was the running back at that time, playing at Cincinnati, and then you end up going to Atlanta where you go to a backfield that's kind of crowded. Tell them who was in the backfield with you, Mr. Stanback.
We had Art Malone and Dave Hampton was there. But, at Cincinnati, they had Boobie Clark and Essex Johnson was running back as well. That I thought was a better backfield than what they had in Atlanta, because I really know much about Dave Hampton and Art Malone, but turned out they were tremendous players themselves. So it was one of those type of things where, I was still coming in, not really looking at an opportunity to start, but an opportunity to learn from some true and proven veterans at that time. So that was a good situation for me. Because they had Norm Van Brocklin was there too. So Norm was a character. He was
the Flying Dutchman. The Flying Dutchman, as they know him in Philly as.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Well, he was responsible for the last championship in Philly before they won a Super Bowl. A lot of people don't know that. And they passed on Don Shula and they brought in Norm Van Brocklin instead or whatnot. We see how that we see how that turned out.
Yeah.
So another question I got for you, Mr. Stanback, is now when you got to Atlanta, upstart team, Rankin Smith, former UGA alumni, and the story is he used the Falcons as a tax write-off and whatnot for himself. He had that
I heard that. Yeah.
And the question is this. Now, when you guys had players, because when you came around, you had some of the cornerstones of that Grits Blitz defense that was around with Claude Humphrey, Tommy Novus, rest in peace to both of those gentlemen. Both should be in the Hall of Fame. One is, and the other one should be. And then you had one of the greatest cornerbacks that played in Atlanta. I'm sorry to you Deion Sanders fans. Say what you want. I don't give a damn. Deion does not have 39 career interceptions for Atlanta. Roland Lawrence was that dude. Say what you want about it.
Yeah.
And then you had Ken Reeves, who was literally Scott Case before Scott Case came around. So put some respect on the OGs, you young bucks. Learn your history before you start challenging the old school athletes. Let's get this straight. That Grits Blitz defense really averaged 13 points a game when Mr. Stanback was there. So put some respect on it. What was it like practicing against that defense every day?
Well, it was rugged. You had another guy named Ray Brown was a safety. And I used to call him Brown Dirt Cowboy. I mean, he was the demon as well. And then you had the guy named came out of Grambling, Pennywell. Robert Pennywell came in during that time as well. So the defense was what was really the heart and soul of the team, because our offensive line was just like, I mean,
don't let Jeff Van Note hear you say that.
Van Note was it. I mean,
he was a Kentucky boy.
Van Note was it. And then they brought in Dave Scott and Warren Bryant later on. But when I got there, I mean, Jeff that was it. And it was like, damn, I mean, how you gonna run behind this, offensive line? But
but remember, and a lot of folks don't know this, but I know you know. So Jeff Van Note originally was a quarterback in high school, and then he was a tight end and a defensive lineman at University of Kentucky.
Right.
And Falcons used him as a center, which he held that position for 18 years. And man, what was it like with Jeff Van Note as the signal leader? Because looking at what we had with Alex Mack during our Super Bowl run in 2016, and then you look at Mud Duck Todd McClure, who we had, and then you go back and you look at Mr. Van Note. I really think Jeff Van Note is the greatest center we had in this organization. No disrespect to those guys, but I really think he was the greatest.
Yeah, a hell of a leader, and just a downright good guy, And because you had a guy named Dennis Havoc that played one center, and we had a guy named Nick Bebout. We used to call him the Cookie Monster. Had the ugliest body you ever seen. I mean, it was like he never touched a weight in his life, But the offensive lineman was other than Jeff, because Jeff made All Pro several years while he was there, as offensive lineman. But he was about, until they brought in Dave Scott and Warren Bryant, it was pretty pathetic. Yeah,
and then you bring in the original, ladies and gentlemen. They brought in the original Brett Favre. Now let's get this straight. Steve Bartkowski was not the Christian man you knew when he first got to Atlanta. Let's get that straight. He found Jesus in Atlanta. He even says he found Jesus in Atlanta. But he said he found the bars and the women like Brett Favre did before he found Jesus. But what was it like playing with Steve Bartkowski, the Peachtree Bart, as everybody calls him? Because I didn't get to see him play in his heyday. What was it like being in that huddle with him and really watching him through the maturation process as these young quarterbacks go through?
Yeah, but Steve was kind of a lighthearted kind of guy. His presence in the huddle wasn't like real demanding leadership type person, or like a Brett Favre or someone like that. Supposedly. He was like one of the guys. He come in and say, "Oh, okay, guys, come on, let's go and do whatever," kind of thing. But had a hell of an arm. At that time he had Wallace Francis, Alfred Jenkins was there as wide receivers. So he had some talent to throw to, and but he had a real good arm, a hell of an arm. But it was just he just didn't the prototypical type of quarterback leader, take charge of the huddle. That really wasn't him. He was one of the guys. He just kind of stepped in the huddle and called the play and break the huddle and kind of go from there, really.
So, Mr. Stanback, let me ask you something. Who was your offensive staff, the whole staff back then?
Oh, God. You got me now, man. I'm trying because the guy that was the running back coach, golly, what was his name? He wasn't a strong personality-wise either way. You're gonna make me show my age now, guys.
You're all right. You're fine. I understand.
Because I couldn't even get. I know a guy's name was Barnes. Barnes was a backfield coach. Is his last name. I'm trying to think who was on the other guy. The wide receiver coach was Jimmy. Golly, what's Jimmy's last name? Jimmy played ball. Shit. You got me, guys. I give up.
No, that's okay.
All right. We can transition to something else. So who was your the toughest team, going in the division back then? Like, one of the guys you loved to play against or teams you like to play against back then?
Because, we played against the Rams, when they had that, Dryer, Youngblood, and that crowd out there. That was always tough. The Saints was always tough. We played the Saints. The Saints were a tough. I mean, they were a tough team. Played against played against Minnesota when they had the people purple eaters up there with those guys.
Okay.
Alan,
Okay.
Alan Page, Jim Marshall. You
Yeah.
got and Carl Eller Moose, and then you had Paul Krause, the interception leader in the NFL.
Yeah.
Nasty defense.
Yeah. And of course, Chicago, I was right at the end of Buckus' career, and Chicago was still coming back around. On the defensive side, was still playing some good ball at that particular time. So we played against some teams that had some, because defense was the main focal point back that time. We didn't spread them all out and sling the ball all around. You ran the ball between the tackles, you dumped them off to your tight ends and your wide receivers, and you grinded it out. Yeah.
I think we're trying to get back to that these today's Falcons.
If I were coaching right now, I'd get me a running back about 6'3", about 230 pounds that could catch out the backfield, and I'd wear them little linebackers and DBs out because they don't want to tackle nobody nowadays.
I don't know if he's 6'3", but he can catch it out the backfield, so that might be what we think.
and see you actually, now a lot of people, we have people that talk about unicorns at the tight end position. You got to play with a real unicorn. We ain't talking about a pretend unicorn. We know him as the government mule, but I ain't gonna get into this. We're gonna start. But you got to play with Jim Mitchell, and then you got to play with the other tight end that we drafted high, who was a unicorn, Mr. Last but not least, Junior Miller. That was a real
watching him. Oh man, he was. I'd love to have him on the team now. He is something else.
Yeah.
What was it like playing with the real unicorn?
I tell you, Jim Mitchell's legs was the same size from his ankle all the way to his hip. He didn't take no prisoners. He just, he had a reputation of knocking the tight end out once a game. He was rugged. Miller was more finesse, and he was a pass route kind of guy. Big guy still. He was good. But Mitchell was basically just another offensive lineman, and occasionally he'd catch a ball, but when he caught it, nobody wanted to deal with him because it was like a big rock rolling downhill.
Sound like Granddad.
Yes. So Jim Mitchell, you want a modern day comparison of that Darnell Washington that came out of Georgia is like Jim Mitchell was. That is a good comparison.
Pittsburgh still
a lot taller.
Yeah, we call him we call Darnell Washington Granddaddy because of the way he walks. 6'8", 270, 275, and runs a 4.5 as a tight end that size. And great hands and block.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Pittsburgh got him. We wanted Atlanta to get him because of the type of offense that we run, but it's okay though.
That's been a great pick.
Yeah. We got Bijan Robinson. Like you were talking about running backs or whatnot. I'll be honest with you.
Like
he fits what you were talking about. He's just 5'11". That's the only difference.
Yeah.
He's about 220 and can move. He can cut like you used to cut back in the day. Literally. Quick and very violent if he gets a shot on you.
Yeah.
So getting back to it, your best season was in 1977, but the Falcons' first playoff season, you really were a major part of that in 1978. Can you go back and tell us about the time that y'all beat the Philadelphia Eagles in Fulton County Stadium? Is music to my ears. I live with these people.
we were really looking forward to it, especially from an offensive standpoint. Playing against Bill Berge. Bill Berge was, he was a demon. He just and it was just one of those opportunities that you have to really just let everybody see and understand. We got some talent here as well, and you come into our house, and so let's go ahead and just put all the chips out there that you made, and best man win. And defense played well, and was able to get a couple of things done, and it was a good win for us, really good win.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Killian. I saw you had something you was trying to ask him.
Oh no, to talk about the different teams they went against. What are some the stadiums back then? Like, you know, the experiences back then. Like, I know a lot of these stadiums are probably demolished, but what are some of the better places to play other than Fulton County Stadium back then? Like maybe one of your better road stadiums you played in.
Because at that time it was one of those universal fields where the Braves would play on Friday. And a lot of times, the infield they never come put the grass down over the infield. That was a challenge, especially as a running back. You run the ball and all of a sudden you go from grass to dirt, and it just and it was hard. It wasn't soft dirt. I mean, it was hard. Well, baseball dirt.
I got you.
And so you had you had a couple of multi-purpose fields like that. But there was some challenges. One of the opportunities that you had was like, we played Pittsburgh at home. Go to LA and play the Rams out on the West Coast. So it was the stadiums weren't quite as, I don't know the right word to use, dynamic as they are now. It was more so the personality of the teams that played there. That was the factor. Like I say, the people Purple Eaters, fearsome foursomes. You had those personalities. Then you go down to Dallas. They had Harvey Martin and Too Tall and those guys. So it was more personalities on the team than it was more so than the stadiums and the cities. That makes sense.
What was it like? So what was it like playing against, we're going to get back to our questions, but this is something I always wanted to know because I used to love watching them on NFL films and I used to love hearing them talk trash. What was it like playing against Deacon Jones in his heyday when he was on? What was that like? Because you talked about playing against the Rams. That was he and Merlin Olsen were the heart of that fearsome foursome defense.
They were. I thought Merlin Olsen was the biggest man I ever seen in my life. I ran off tackle play and I come and huddle, come out the office, tackle the huddle and run an off tackle play. And Merlin Olsen stood up and spread his arms out like this, and he grabbed the offensive lineman and me all at the same time. Seemed like, and then go nowhere. And Deacon was just who he was. A little trash, on the slide, but was it quick off the ball, about like Claude Humphrey. Big hands, first step off the ball, and I mean, he's got you in a compromise. That was the way it was.
It's something in the water when you talk about those boys that come up out of that Central Florida, Orlando, or Popka area, because Deacon Jones is from Eatonville, Florida, which is an all-black community that he came from, which is right next door to Apopka where Warren Sapp and, former Georgia Bulldog Jalen Carter came from. It's a few people that's still a little sad about not taking him. But when you talk about it, they breed defensive linemen that come up out of that area. It's like it never fails. And don't forget, God rest his soul, Jerome Brown came from Brooksville, Florida, so it's not that far from that area. So when you talk about talent, like defensive linemen are bred every day, and you literally just talked about Deacon, how he had his thing or whatnot. Glenn, I saw you raise your hand. What you got for Mr. Stanback?
Mr. Stanback, I got a question for you. Did you ever play against the Raiders back in 1975 or 76? And if you did,
who was that now?
The Oakland Raiders back in the 1975 when John Madden coached.
I'm trying to think. We played against the Raiders. Gosh, I know we played against them once. Matter of fact, I may have a game ball over here when we played against the Raiders. But let me see.
If you got it, put it on camera for our viewers. That'd be good.
Let's see.
He played against you mentioned Madden's Raiders. You talking about Otis Sistrunk, Ted Hendricks, Jack Tatum, George Atkinson, better known as Butch, right out of Morris Brown College. Shout out to the HBCUs out here. Willie Hall, I can't forget about Mr. Willie Brown. God rest his soul.
Yes, sir.
Monster.
No. Legendary
That
team, man.
whole defense was full of monsters.
Indeed. Good God. Didn't he go like
I want,
13-1 that year?
now this one here is game ball from
Dang.
when we beat the Eagles for the first playoff game, 14-13.
All right, that is unbelievable. That's cool.
So I got some friends that's up here in Philly that's tuning in for the show and they're Eagle fans. Hey, that's a little something for y'all. So I still love y'all, but we got to revel in y'all misery a little bit.
Clap.
I got several here. I'm gonna show you right here, but we're gonna take them all down. But I got a couple game balls over the years.
Yeah, man. That's all. We did a click quick. We like that. Love it.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Only on the BirdCage will you get exclusives like this, ladies and gentlemen. So always tune in to these shows, man. We had a treat for you. So getting back to it, Mr. Stanback. The other question I had for you was, now 1979 was your last season in Atlanta. After you guys unfortunately lost to Dallas, like we've had two of our worst losses to Dallas in 78 and 1980. Two of our worst losses. And you had a hell of a game that day against Dallas in 78. You were on fire then. It was just like, I just don't understand, like, why in the world could we never get past Dallas? And that goes back to you, and then even with Steve Barkowski and those guys in 80. Like, what was it about, once you guys won your playoff game, you lost, and you were setting up for the next season. How were you mentally transitioning for the next season? Because that was the year they brought in Lynn Kane and William Andrews.
Yeah.
Grant's favorite running back.
It was a learning period for us. To never experience, playing in championship games or that of that caliber or at all, really. It was a learning experience for us. And then when they brought in Lynn Kane and William Andrews, it was a transitional thing then, as far as I was concerned. They brought them in to take my job, basically, is the way I looked at it. But at the same time, you felt the responsibility to help the young guys learn, the trade and the little nuances of the game or the position, as far as picking up blitzes and recognize blitzes and being committed, to be in shape and be ready to play come game time. Because a lot of times in college you really never have to really deal with that. I mean, because things was kind of handed to you a lot of times, or competition wasn't really that tough every week, so you could, I don't want to say take some time off or take a time out, but it was a little bit different. And Dave Hampton did that for me when I came in. So I felt obligation to do the same with Lynn and William and a kid named Ray Strong at the same time. That, hey, this is what it's going to take, and this is, you have to be committed to it. So it was a learning experience on both sides of the ball, really. Yeah.
So you practically taught William Andrews everything he knows.
Because he didn't never run the ball, and all he did was block for Cribbs and Brooks.
I told you, Brian. I told you.
He came in. He came in with this big old collar around his neck. I'm going, man, you got to come out of that. You got to get some wiggle to it. You can't wiggle with all that around you. But it was tremendous athlete.
What was his? So I've heard people describe him. Now you got to see Earl Campbell as a rookie in '78 when he first stepped on the scene.
Earl
and you
was
guys beat him in the first game. They compare William Andrews to Earl Campbell. They say he's a smaller Earl Campbell. How big was William in person compared to Earl?
It's hard to say because if you can't compare him because it's a total different body size style. I mean, build. Earl was a demon. William became a demon. And once he took that collar off his neck, he wasn't near as bigger running back as he looked with his uniform on. Earl was big. He had them big old thigh pads. Well, but he was a big man, and he was when he ran he didn't take no prisoners. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to, and you like you said, you got to see some legendary running backs. I told you, we've had a conversation. I told you Walter Payton was my idol, and you got to watch Walter. And the Falcons and the Bears used to play often, so you got to see Walter Payton transition into what he became. What was it like watching a great running back of that sort just blossom out of Jackson State like that?
Yeah. As a player, a lot of times you didn't really get all wrapped up in the watching individual players during the game. But when we played Chicago, it was a treat to see Walter P run the ball. Especially when he get out and open, he started high stepping, and whatnot. It was a treat to watch him. Of course, my all-time favorite is Gale Sayers. I mean, to me, Gale Sayers was
glad.
He didn't waste no energy. I mean, he just kind of slide and he was. And Lawrence McCutcheon was a good running back.
Oh yeah,
from the Rams. Yeah, but Gale Sayers is my all-time favorite.
And people don't realize Walter Payton never gets drafted if Gale Sayers never busted his knee up, because Gale would have had a long career.
He would have. He would.
Because remember, Walter came in 4 years after Gale blew his knee out.
Yeah. I remember that, but you're right. That's correct. Yeah.
Mr. Stanback, I got a question for you. If and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, because I know there's a lot of variables that go into it. But who is the best football player that you ever played against, whether it be high school, college, or NFL? Because sometimes things get in the way and things happen, and some people don't always make it to the NFL. So just the best player you played against.
When I was growing up, there was a running back. We call him Pee Wee Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
Pee Wee Patterson, you couldn't catch him in a hula hoop, but Pee Wee didn't like his school, and what coach, when I was growing up, we had you had Concord, you had Kannapolis, and you had Albemarle, and you had certain cities that the rivalries was just off the chain, and the fans would come into the stands. I mean, it was like even back during the late '60s, that was a lot like it is right now from that standpoint. But I think some of the uncles that I had when I was growing up were tremendous athletes. But like I said, but guys didn't go to school. I mean, it's just like, and even after I started to go on to play from UT to to the Falcons, I mean, I can remember James Lee Johnson, one of the Johnson boys, because the Johnsons was another family, had about 8 or 9 boys in the family, a couple sets of twins. And I mean, these were some tremendous athletes, but never really took advantage of opportunities to go and play and develop their sports or show off their talents like I was. I was like the one of the few at that time to actually be able to leave from that environment to go on to kind of show and display some talents that I guys that I grew up with or grew up around was a hell of a lot better.
Admit it. That's all. It seems like.
Yeah. It was that textile mill. I wasn't gonna go back and work in that textile mill, man. It was like,
ultimate motivation right there. That was ultimate motivation.
That wasn't gonna happen.
So once you concluded your playing career in 1979, you had a good career. Thank God you didn't experience really, knee injuries or whatnot. You still can walk. You had like you said, you had your wrist injury, because one of the pictures that we have, you actually have a cast around your arm, your hand, and you're carrying a football running through a Washington Redskin defensive player on one of the pictures we have. The question I have for you now, once you transition from the NFL, you ended up getting to Norfolk Southern Railroad. What was that transition like, getting involved and using your degree in logistics?
It was for football. Sports made it easier for me, because it was a male dominant occupation. The railroad at that time was, and I was in the operations department actually supervising the guys that operate the trains and engines and that type of thing. And being here in Atlanta and a lot of them being familiar with my background really made it easier for me, because they taught me how to railroad so I can talk to them about football. Is basically the way the trade-off was, and so they taught me a lot about railroading that I never would have had a chance to be exposed to had I not been coming from the sports environment that I had, and they were familiar with who I was at that particular time. But it was a humbling situation, and I was really grateful for the opportunity to do it, because at that time they only had two other persons of color in management for the railroad at that particular time in operations, and that was really where the money making part of it really was. Matter of fact, they hadn't too soon after it allowed people of color to operate a locomotive engines, to be an engineer. You could be a conductor or a trainman or whatever, but you ain't gonna be no engineer running that train. That was the way it was, So it was still a transition for me. It was still a learning situation for me, but financially it was made a lot more money. That's for damn sure.
In other words, you're saying you made a lot more money in the railroad business than you did in the NFL at that time, correct?
Oh, by far.
Y'all didn't have the union that these kids have now that's playing in the league.
Well, they've always had the union, but the union wasn't as strong as it is right now, but they did have a union. Yeah, they did. It's been around for a while. Yeah.
So, and I got one more question for you, and then I'm gonna let my guys ask their questions too. Well, two questions I got for you, and then I'm gonna let my guys ask their questions as well. My first question is, how have the lessons that you learned in the game of football, it helped you transition and prepare for life after the game? Because we got some young athletes and some college players that watch this here. So this is something for you guys who tune in and whatnot. So pay attention, because this is a wise man who made a lot of money after he left the NFL.
Yeah. It's all about preparation, ambition. I know there's words that we use frivolously a lot of time. Dedication to the cause, and being a team player, not necessarily just a follower, but a team player where you take your role in serious, and if chips fall where they may, if they fall on me, I'm going to answer the call. I'm going to answer the bell. And it's like I just tell the coach. I said, Coach, you don't have to think about it. Just give me the ball. I'll handle it. And you just have to have that mentality. It's not an egotistical type of attitude, but it's just one of being ready for the moment. And if you're not ready, then you need to put your big boy pictures on and either get tougher or move on. I mean, that's just not the way it is. But because I used to tell Dave Hampton all the time, I said, "Oh man, when you gonna retire? Let me go and take this job." Jokingly, but I meant what I said, but it's jokingly. but that's just the way it is. Yeah.
So my final question, because I'm gonna let my guys ask a couple more questions. So my final question for you is, out of that Grits Blitz defense that you practiced against every day, who hit the hardest out of Claude Humphrey, Tommy Nobis, Roland Harper, or Ken Reeves? Who hit the hardest out of those guys?
Coach Ken Reeves was a demon. I mean, he didn't take no
University.
He didn't take no prisoners. And Tommy Nobis, when I came in as a rookie, I heard about Tommy Nobis. And I made the statement, I said, I ain't gonna waste no move on that old man. I'm gonna put my helmet, I'm gonna thump him in the chest and run right through it. And I did. I tried that, but it was like a rock skipping off the water. You know? Next time I came through, I put 102 moves on him. I was not so much of that trying to run over his ass because that wasn't happening. But you know, the one guy, another guy on the team nobody talked about was a defensive tackle by the name of Mike Lewis. I mean, we call him Blowfly, you know, because he always walked around and his fingers be all kind of. He's like he was. Well, that's okay, but Mike Lewis was an animal. I mean, and you know, and he took a lot of heat off of Claude Humphrey. You know, so Humphrey got his dues, but Mike Lewis was, like I said, he was a demon. Yeah.
And you had a young Jerry Glanville running all of that stuff.
Sticky Sid, yeah. Jerry Glanville.
So gentlemen, I'm gonna let you guys ask a question or two, and then we're gonna wrap up after your questions or whatnot. So what you got for Mr. Stanback?
Mr. Stanback, I wanted to ask, in the transportation field, you know, some of our viewers and some of our listeners, you know, they may want to get into the transportation field. Just kind of, you know, speak upon that, you know, what they need to do to get into the railroad business and get into the business that you made a lot more money in football. Just kind of touch on that.
But you know, logistics as it's called now is really what, you know, you see all these trucks run up and down the highway, you know, whatnot. I mean, if they don't move, you don't eat. Period. You know, and it is a profession though. It's a degree that you don't really hear a lot of conversation about. I guess at least I don't. I mean, I don't know if I'm just isolated from the situation or whatnot, but the logistics is what makes things happen. I mean, from the kitchen, you know, to the car you drive. I mean, it's just that's where it is, and there's a lot of opportunities there. From the airlines to the waterways to the highways to, you know, the administrative side of things that will fit a lot of personalities. It's just not so much as, you know, when you think about logistics or whatnot, it's not just trucks run up and down the road. I mean, it's cargo planes, it's the cargo ships, it's so much more to it than that. Then you get the digital side of things as well. So it's a field that can fill a lot of opportunities for individuals, but not highly publicized, and wasn't publicized at all when I came along. But I'm telling you, man, it was and it's a people business as well, you know, because it's almost like a team sport. You know, you got different clusters of locations that have to do their part to make everything else work, make everything else fit. Because if there's a break in that supply chain, then you got issues. It's just like COVID, when COVID came along, you know, and it's when it breaks that chain, it's rugged on the environment, rugged on the economy. It's tough.
Yeah, it's good to hear, because a lot of our viewers and listeners, you know, we don't really hear about logistics. And it's good, you know, that's something that people can get into, because, like he said, the waterways, the highways, and the byways. You know, because I'm a kitchen, and that's how we get our food. You know, coming in through trucks, coming in through U.S. food. So that's huge, and it's big.
That's true. It is.
You got anything else you want to ask, Mr. Stanback? K-Dub?
I mean, he touched on a lot. I'm trying to think of some other things that I have for you before we wrap up today. So other than transportation and logistics, are you doing anything else in the community that you want to speak upon or put out there for our viewers that you just want to get out there to the public?
Well, you know, I guess if there was any one thing that I really felt like I was really deficient in, was really getting involved in the community. You know, with the kids, and I decided I wouldn't coach the Pop Warner football teams a little bit, but that was never something that I really, I don't know if because the one thing is that, well, there's really no excuse. I just did not do what I should have done or could have done to promote young kids or help younger kids or not just young kids, but just community type things. I just didn't do it. And, I'm sure there's opportunities there that I just overlooked or, or had other issues to deal with, but that's, if there's a check mark on the resume, that has to be one of them.
No, that's all I had. Anything for him, Coach?
Mr. Stanback, I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate this, man. This is good. Great.
Yeah, I like I said, I became a Falcons fan in 1978, and I was born in '73. So that's about the time I started noticing and watching football. And I played ball all the way through high school, and I played 2 sports in college, and I coached for 10 years also. And now I'm out of the sports business, and I'm a manager for a team, and I echo everything that you were just saying. Football carries over into the real world, and working with people and learning how to be a teammate and help other people out. And thank you for Rocky Top all the way through. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Graybeard, what you got for Mr. Stanback?
To echo Coach B, it was an honor and privilege to meet you, Mr. Stanback. My last question would be, if you had an opportunity to talk to our new Falcons that we just got drafted in 2023, what would you tell them from transitioning to college to pro? And what type of advice and gems would you tell them? Getting ready to experience, a new career, which is the NFL.
Yeah, I would tell them to be a professional at what they do, and when good things happen, to act like they've been there before and it's not their first time. They pump on their chest and whatever. They run up around the stands and high-fiving the fans, and their teammates are on the field, and that's who you should show your appreciation with, because it's a team effort. So be a team player. Do good things. Stay committed to the cause. Stay committed to your team, and when good things happen, act like you've been there before. It's not your first time.
I like that.
You got anything else on Graybeard you want to know?
No, sir. Just once again, sir, thank you for coming on.
Thank you also.
It was truly an honor and a privilege to meet you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Same here, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Cool.
So all of us, like I said, they said their thank yous. Like I said, we definitely appreciate you coming through. We are going to be having an event around the city of Atlanta. I know you are mainly busy and on chill. So once we get the information set, if you would like to join us, we're going to probably end up watching the Falcons away game in Atlanta. We're working on getting a venue, and we'd love to have you to come through with the party.
Appreciate
You and Dr. Pender as well.
We'll do that.
Because he was our first interviewee, and he said, make sure you let Haskel know that I was the first one on this show. He's that competitive.
Yeah, he's still better.
So, very competitive. Even in the interview, he said, make sure you let him know I had the better questions, and I was the first. And I said, I got you, Uncle Mel. And he just, it was just all in good fun. But he said, just make sure you tell him I said that. So,
all right, guys.
we definitely appreciate you for coming through. And my crew, thank y'all for coming through as you always do. And behind the scenes, everybody else who didn't step on, thank y'all for handling business behind closed doors. We don't say it enough. So thank you for all your efforts and everything you do. Because like Mr. Stanback said, it's a team effort. We wouldn't be able to do this stuff without you guys. So, and the first lady of the BirdCage too. And she definitely plays a major part in what we do every day. So even though we're working on some things behind closed doors. You know, everybody's appreciated that's in this birdcage brainchild. We definitely appreciate that. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Mr. Haskel Stanback, the crew for coming in, and we definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in with the legendary Mr. Haskel Stanback onto the show. We have some more interviews that are going to be coming up, and we're going to see you guys next week at 8 p.m. We actually do have a special guest coming through, former welterweight champ, lightweight champ, Mr. Nate the Galaxy Warrior Campbell, former Don King fighter and one of the best to ever lace up some gloves. He and Sweet Pete Whitaker are the only two fighters to ever unify 3 world titles. So check us out next week in the Birdcage on the Perch segment when we bring in more athletes and we have more stories coming for you. And we also going to be talking about the Falcons in the next couple of weeks. You know, everybody's talking about the draft picks. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to see if these boys can matriculate into something next year. We definitely appreciate all of our viewers for coming through. And like always, you spend at least a good hour of your time with us, and you could be doing it elsewhere. We definitely appreciate you for coming through the Birdcage, man. My name is Ryan Walker. I'm the historian. Thank you for coming through once again. We'll see you guys next week. Love you. Y'all stay safe out there. Peace.